Check out today's piece of fan art. Fitting for today's video is Artoria Pendragon. She's in her Zero outfit, but seems to be in mid-transformation. The aura around her arm looks awesome. Thank you so much, Heroic Spirit Nero. Welcome back to OtakuDaiKun. Dai here. Artoria Pendragon, more broadly known as the original and most classic Saber in Fate Stay Night, is my absolute favorite character in all of fiction. To me, she's the ultimate badass, but just as much, she's extremely precious. Considering the kinds of characters I typically gravitate toward, my obsession with her surprises even me, and I've had people straight up ask what I see in her. Well, for this video, I plan to answer that question in as much detail as I can provide. This isn't meant to cover Artoria's lore. For that, please visit my more specialized video called Fate Lore, The Tale of Artoria Pendragon. In contrast, this video will be much more personal, a reflection of my experience falling in love with the character, as well as doing some analysis into her design and general appeal. Whenever I try to convey why I like Artoria, I keep coming back to this one image. Saber, standing gallantly in the sunset, with her divine sword stuck in the ground, lighting the way forward. This is her default stance, and we often see her in it while positioned across a vast field. It was this exact image on the box art of Dean Stay Night that convinced me to buy the show from a now defunct video store. I'd heard the name Saber, and even seen some pictures, but it all started with me looking at this one image and asking, who is this person, and why is she called Saber? I must admit that the mystery surrounding her identity did play a role in my initial fascination, but even beyond that, her visual design more than speaks for itself. The way she's posed, her clothing, her colors, and the expression on her face all communicate a sense of pride and nobility. At the same time, however, those aspects have a delicate, feminine side to them that make that strength truly beautiful. Her armor, especially her gauntlets, indicate that she's a knight in some capacity. Obviously, later artwork really hammers home how she's a king, what with the crown and fluffy cloak, but I don't think it's too hard to guess without them. The fact that she's a leader can be gleaned from her uninterrupted gaze into the far distance. She's looking on ahead at all the possibilities that lie before her. She's not scared, nor pleased even. Some may call her expression calm or even cold, but there's not a hint of indifference. Rather, this is clearly a look of confident determination. She's focused on the horizon, surveying what lies ahead. The rigidity of her stance is comforting. It's clear she's a protector, deeply rooted to where she stands, unwilling to flinch no matter the threat. Her battle dress fans out to give her a triangular silhouette, further grounding her. It's an oddly satisfying shape, giving the same sort of weight one might see from characters like Mega Man or Sora from Kingdom Hearts. We get that she's a brave leader, but it's also clear that she's no barbarian either. There's a sense of grace in her design. Her armor, while shining brilliantly, does not cover her entire body. It's not form-fitting in the fashionable sense we're used to seeing on women in anime, but it still leaves room for expression. Of course, I'm referring to the dress. It's a vibrant blue gown with gold trimmings. It exudes a sense of royalty, as such vibrant, saturated fabrics were once rare and expensive. It's worth noting that this isn't a tunic, but a full-on dress, showcasing an unhindered femininity. Let's have a look at her hair. Personally, I think Artoria has all the fixings for the ideal hairstyle. She's got some lush bangs in the front, accented by two longer strands on each side that dangle down like floppy puppy ears. It frames her face while mixing in an element of cute. In her default form, she wears her hair back in a weaved bun, tied up with a blue bow that matches her gown. This is practical as well as versatile. It's got a bit of everything, topped off by her iconic aoge. A single strand is all that's needed to tie her stoic elegance with a nice reminder that she is, indeed, a fun anime character. Bonus points for the fact that they later use it as a wagging tail, which is one of at least two different animalistic qualities she demonstrates, the other being a lion, of course. Colors aren't usually my forte, but it's clear that Artoria's color palette plays a huge part in her character as well. silver armor, gold accents, blonde hair, and a vibrant blue to fill in the bulk. The color of her hair indicates her European ethnicity, though it's not like there's any rule in anime that hair has to match reality. That said, it does pair well with the gold lining of her dress and blade. The silver of her armor pairs with the poofy white pants beneath her skirt. I love how accents of her blue dress are etched into her armor, tying everything together nicely. In terms of making a visually iconic anime character, the vibrancy helps define her, creating a wonderful contrast between her blue and Rin Tosaka's red. Again, there's a certain satisfaction here, and it comes with characters themed around the RGB triangle. It's like what we see from Alibaba, Aladdin, and Morgiana from the anime Magi. I said this before, but I want to return to the idea that her stoicism is contrasted by a delicate femininity. We simply can't ignore it. A huge part of Artoria's appeal is how such an awesome character can be charging headlong into battle in one moment and joyfully relaxing in another. Sure, it takes time for Artoria to reach this stage, but the duality is still clearly baked into every part of her design. Just compare her to her fellow knights. They loyally stand by her, and while she is indeed a commanding presence, she's far shorter than the soldiers she leads. Contrary to what she claims about being overly muscular, she's actually quite petite. By default, you wouldn't assume her to be that wildly strong, but it helps us accept it when her body is covered in that conservative dress and armor. Her feminine hair is tied back, as if trying to hide her gender. We of course learn why this is through her legend, but I appreciate how we can glean this information from her appearance alone. I appreciate even more how she does not outright reject her femininity. All the workings of a beautiful woman are there, but they don't overshadow her visage as a knight. When she lets down her hair and removes her armor, that beauty becomes a focal point. By literally shedding her defenses, it's like Artoria is exposing her heart to us. This is especially apparent by the conveniently placed window of exposed skin above her chest. Not only does it mirror her triangular silhouette, it also serves as a window into her soul, one that she really only reveals to people she trusts. I don't mean at all to imply that being feminine indicates weakness, but because Artoria often masks this side of herself, it comes across as especially precious and delicate. We'll explore how it's precious to her, and why it captivates us so. The idea is that just from a single glance, we can tell that she's a brave leader, gallant and prideful, while also exuding a delicately wrapped beauty that tugs at our hearts. Our reaction to her should be the same as Shiro's when he first summons her. In essence, this is Saber, an innocent young girl coated in layers of royalty and determination. Again, I don't want to trigger anyone when I say that Artoria's femininity is delicate. I don't interpret that as an inherent weakness. Rather, it's endearing, and it later becomes a tremendous source of strength. For as much as I see some fans praise her for not being sexualized, she's clearly not just mirroring her male counterpart. She's her own person, and I love her for it. Arthur's cool and all, but to me, he isn't nearly as compelling and iconic as Artoria. Of all the gender bends in Fate, hers is easily the most justified. Everything I've said so far pertains to Artoria's visual design, without even touching upon her actual behavior in the story. I'm sure many of you first encountered Saber as part of Fate Zero, Unlimited Blade Works, Heaven's Feel, or Fate Grand Order. Those are the more popular entries in the franchise, after all. For the most part, these works make her appear totally awesome, and she is. But it's impossible to fully grasp Artoria's appeal without looking at her own route. This means experiencing the Fate route of the visual novel, or watching the 2006 anime. I can vouch for Dean Stay Night in this case, because it really does convey the feelings present in the novel, often using direct recreations of the novel's CGs. What the Fate route does that the other stories don't do as well is show Artoria in a state of severe weakness. Because Shiro isn't a talented mage, he struggles to provide her with enough mana. He's also vulnerable to curses and charms, so she doesn't even want to reveal her true name in case he's manipulated by the enemy. This leaves Shiro to view Artoria as this brilliant enigma. She bravely and fiercely charges into battle, even when the odds are against her. She gets battered and beaten, yet still keeps standing at all costs. We quickly learn that she is self-sacrificial, willing to endure pain for the sake of her master, as well as her ideals as a knight. Because she's often on the losing end, however, this resilience makes her look like a fragile flower, lasting strong through a violent storm. For as much as she fights to protect you, she becomes all the more worthy of your desire to protect her. This is why Shiro, the wannabe hero of justice, is a perfect fit for her master. They are both brave and stubborn, advising each other to value themselves more. It's not that Shiro is some sexist who can't have a woman fighting his battles for him. Instead, right from the get-go, her loyalty and perseverance inspire him to take action, especially considering that her injuries are in part his fault. In this route especially, Shiro gets various chances to witness Artoria's vulnerable side. She collapses from a lack of mana, and even has to be carried to safety. It's only by embracing her as a woman that Shiro can help her stay alive and fight to her full capacity. This intimacy is present regardless of whether you're playing the original 18+ version or the Rialta Nua edition with the Red Dragon. Because of this intimacy, Shiro is able to dream about Saber's past and discern her wish for the Grail. The full weight of her journey isn't clear until Fate Zero, but it's obvious she wants to use the Grail so that someone else can take her place as king. She feels unworthy of the throne and believes that Britain would have thrived under a different king. To that end, she's been denying herself the king's peaceful utopia of Avalon in favor of seeking the Grail. In other words, she's still putting off her own personal happiness, even after death. Despite Shiro doing the exact same thing in alternate realities, he begs Artoria to consider herself for once, namely because his greatest desire is to be with her. Thus, when the Holy Grail finally seems within her grasp, she refuses it, instead recalling her childhood. Artoria was a young girl who was raised to be king since birth. Her taking on this burden was always a given. So by day, she loyally served as page to her teacher, Sir Ector, while being lectured at night by Merlin, who communicated through her dreams. For as resolved as Artoria was to draw the Sword of Selection, she did so while burying one wish of hers that becoming king completely denied. Specifically, she yearned to live as a normal woman, a maiden rather than Britain's ruler. Going back to her visual design, the fact that she doesn't age after pulling the sword serves as a constant reminder of what she left behind. Recalling this wish, Artoria chooses to join Shiro in destroying the Grail. To commemorate this, prior to their final battle, Shiro gives back her divine scabbard, allowing her to take down her strongest foe, Gilgamesh. In a sense, one could argue that by acknowledging and embracing her feminine desires, she truly becomes complete as a person. Her slaying of Gilgamesh represents her at her best. She literally sheds her armor, revealing her dress before landing that final hit from Excalibur. She then allows herself to confess her love for Shiro as her hair falls down to her shoulders. This is one thing I actually think Studio Dean did better than in the novel. Assuming UFO Table ever does remake the Fate route, I hope they use this idea too. Anyway, Artoria's triumph through embracing her selfishness is a direct response to the discussion she has with Gilgamesh and Iskandar in Fate Zero. Until now, Artoria had always been lacking something as a king. While debating what it means to be a king, she asserts that a proper king must sacrifice himself for the people to serve as their sword and shield. She views her colleagues' boisterous egos to be an abuse of their power. Gilgamesh laughs at her for this, and Iskandar declares a king must lead by example. A king should be both fighting and basking in human desires. A king must make love, eat, and be merry, so that his people can follow in his stead. Artoria, by comparison, is being a martyr to her people, leading them in combat and matters of state, but not as a fellow human. This resonates with her, given that she'd received the exact same complaint in life. By not embracing her own happiness, Artoria could not understand the deeper feelings of her companions. Not only did this lead to her rejecting Mordred, who just wanted to be acknowledged as her child, but it also drove Lancelot mad with guilt. He wanted punishment that she hadn't thought to provide because her marriage to Guinevere was mainly political. Iskandar's words sink in, and as Artoria reflects on her past, she reasons she is no longer worthy of being king. I'd like to mention that while she did make mistakes in life, her way of ruling wasn't without merit. As I said before, her selflessness and reliability make her precious. Her earnestness to protect you inspires you to protect her, and I've no doubt this is what encouraged her best knights to fight alongside her. All of them, including the treacherous Mordred, deeply admired her. To that end, I'd say her rule was at least as valid as Iskandar's or Gilgamesh's. It's also quite fitting that Gilgamesh, instead of wanting to protect Artoria, takes delight in her suffering. He sees the kind of beauty I've been describing this whole time, but instead of supporting her, he wants to take advantage of her, to prolong that tragedy for his own benefit. Thus, when she finally embraces her selfish desires, she demonstrates it by finally besting him in combat. There's a poetic, cyclical narrative contained within the Fate route that the others don't quite nail to the same extreme. That said, both the other routes still display Artoria in states of weakness. She is held captive by Medea in Unlimited Bladeworks, forced to dress in a revealing gown. Because her femininity is not being expressed willfully here, it's associated with weakness. Artoria does eventually acknowledge her selfishness in this route, but not to the same degree of fanfare. Heaven's Feel goes about it quite differently. Here, Artoria is forced to press on with her wish for the Grail, but because of the Grail's corruption, she does so without anyone else to help her. In a dark void, she desperately swims toward her destination. The face she shows is not one of relief or comfort, but rather obsession. It's as if her more virtuous self is buckling under the expectations placed upon her, and to step up to the plate, her more cruel alter persona emerges. Instead of embracing herself as a young girl, she is pulled back into the cold rigidness that she relied on to rule Britain objectively. This isn't to say that Saber Alter can't be feminine, but in this specific situation, her emergence is treated as a poison. The Grail has corrupted her, and she can only be saved through death. So yeah, Saber is a truly flawed character whose entire characterization, her fate as it were, depends on the course of the story. It's obvious that her peak moment, the true answer to her despair, is when she truly embraces her desires. It doesn't make her any less of a king, nor does it erase all of the hard work she's put in. Instead, it makes her much stronger, and it makes me wonder just how much better she could have been as a king, with both aspects of her personality united in tandem, rather than having one try to bury the other. To reiterate, her flaws are what make her endearing and far more satisfying than if she were some kind of overpowered Mary Sue. Her frailty makes her stronger, and once you realize that, it's possible to truly appreciate all the moments where she's genuinely happy. One might start to think Artoria's girlish, cutesy behavior at times comes at the expense of her stance as a badass. I, however, think it's the exact opposite. By getting to see the pleasant world she fought for, it gives all of her tragedy and struggle a deeper meaning. Hopefully you all now fully understand why I love this character so much. She's a one-stop shop for almost all the things I want out of fiction. She's attractive, she's strong, she's adorable, and all of it is carefully crafted into the narrative she's a part of. Do you agree, though? I'd like to hear your opinions of Artoria, including how you first experienced her. Also, what other characters do you appreciate more because of the flaws they need to overcome? Let me know in the comments below. Before I go ahead and roll the credits, I want to give a special shout out to all my $10 and up supporters. Video Gamer 75, C. James Torley, Stephen Elak, Samuel Gersten, Otaku Mom, Jens Bauman, Mystic Samurai 1983, Freebrick, Cosmonaut, RNG or Shuffles 1498, Alexis Yukio Gomez Yamato, Johnny Tsunami, Link Pendrago, Caitlin P, Vladimir Rovna, Succubus Sakura, and SF Giants fan Mike. Thank you all so much. Thanks for watching.
If you enjoy this channel, help us grow by liking, commenting, sharing the video, subscribing to OtakuDaiKun, and
most of all, smashing that notification bell so you don't miss out on all of our anime discussion, lore, or Let's Play content.
You can support us directly through Patreon, Subscribestar, or our YouTube membership, all of which come with benefits like exclusive vids and early access.
As always,
celebrate your fandom!